For every one new regulation, 10 old regulations must be eliminated. The next phase of our plan to deliver the greatest economy in history is...
Now, President Trump's idea of making America rich again is crumbling under his own policies. Economists say key regions and industries are showing clear signs of weaknesses.
We've obviously seen the very visible and visceral reaction from markets to US policies, but it's very interesting to see from the consumer side what impact it's having. And these little acts of activism from consumers who have decided to turn their back on certain US products.
Canada's appetite for American fast food is fading, and the numbers tell a story too sharp to ignore. 7 of the biggest names, once symbols of U.S. cultural dominance, are now stumbling, their golden arches and glowing signs losing the ability to pull in Canadian wallets. A recent survey conducted between June and July 2025 revealed that Canadians are far more likely than the British or the French to actively avoid U.S. products, services, and even tourism. The economic cost is no longer hypothetical. Within just a single year, American fast food chains lost more than $150 million in Canadian tourist spending alone. From McDonald's to Subway, and even Chick-fil-A, the decline is spreading across the board. What used to be casual dining choices for cross-border visitors have turned into cautionary tales of overpriced meals, declining quality, and a widening cultural gap. And here lies the deeper question. Is this simply a change in taste, or is Canada signaling a broader rejection of America's soft economic power? Before we dive in, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content matters and helps us bring you more investigations like this one. If even the king of fast food is being abandoned, what chance does anyone else have? McDonald's, once the default stop for Canadian travelers, has seen its crown begin to slip. The contrast is striking. Fries in the U.S. are described as bland compared to their crispier, better-seasoned Canadian counterparts, while burgers are dismissed as lifeless, lacking the freshness visitors expect north of the border. The experience goes beyond taste. Many Canadian customers note that U.S. outlets often feel dim, crowded, or poorly maintained when compared to the brighter, cleaner restaurants they are used to back home. The result has been more than just online complaints. It shows up in the numbers. Spending by Canadian visitors at U.S. McDonald's locations has dropped by nearly 29% in just 12 months, a sharp reminder that brand loyalty is not guaranteed. McDonald's no longer holds the unshakable position it once did, and for Canadian tourists, it has stopped being the automatic choice. If you've made it this far, consider subscribing. It's how we keep uncovering what others won't say. And McDonald's isn't the only casualty. Right behind it stands Subway, a chain once celebrated for quick, customizable meals that promised a healthier alternative to greasy fast food. Yet today, it is losing Canadian confidence at record speed. Cross-border sales have fallen by 42%, a collapse far too large to dismiss as a passing trend. The reasons are difficult to ignore. Reports about questionable meat sourcing, high sodium content, and a noticeable drop in quality compared to Canadian outlets have fueled a steady erosion of trust. What was once marketed as fresh and better for you now feels stale, processed, and disappointing. For Canadian travelers, the brand's image has flipped on itself. Instead of being the go-to choice for a quick and reliable lunch, Subway has become a symbol of unmet expectations, a global giant failing to convince even its closest neighbors. If Subway's fall highlights the danger of lost trust, Denny's collapse shows what happens when disappointment becomes the default. Once a familiar stop for Canadians on road trips and cross-border holidays, the chain is now often described as a waste of money rather than a comforting meal. Plans to visit Denny's among Canadian travelers have dropped by 41%, signaling a dramatic shift in perception. The complaints are remarkably consistent. Toast served burnt, pancakes arriving dry, sausages with unclear origins, and meals that too often land on the table cold. In one example that spread across online forums, a couple paid nearly $39 for 2 plates of food, only to be served lukewarm dishes that left them regretting the stop. For a brand that built its reputation as America's national kitchen, the damage is more than financial. Denny's has lost the emotional connection that once made Canadians feel at home in its booths, leaving behind a sense of frustration instead of loyalty. And if Denny's decline felt like a blow to the national kitchen image, IHOP's fall is even more symbolic. The chain once represented the quintessential American breakfast, the kind of meal that Canadians would cross the border to experience. Yet today, it has become the subject of online ridicule. A viral TikTok compared a $26 breakfast at a US IHOP with a $17 brunch in Canada, racking up millions of views and sparking a flood of mocking comments. The criticism is sharp and repetitive. Corn syrup replacing maple, canned fruit instead of fresh, eggs that taste tired, and bacon strips that sag instead of crisp. What was once marketed as a warm, comforting experience now feels dated and careless, stripped of the pride it once carried. IHOP, a brand built on the promise of indulgence and tradition, has instead turned into a cautionary tale. For Canadian visitors, it no longer embodies the joy of a hearty American breakfast. It represents the frustration of paying more for less. If IHOP's problem is the sense of paying more for less, Five Guys takes that frustration to an entirely new level. The brand that once prided itself on premium quality has seen that very claim turn against it. For Canadian visitors, the reality is blunt. A standard order for one person often climbs past $25, hardly the kind of value expected from what is still supposed to be fast food. The backlash hasn't stayed quiet. Viral comparison videos show receipts from Five Guys alongside cheaper, better-rated meals in Toronto, drawing millions of views and cementing the chain's new label, a failed experiment in luxury fast food. Instead of standing out as worth the price, it has become the symbol of excess, too greasy, too expensive, and too out of touch with shifting expectations. For Canadians crossing the border, the choice now feels obvious. With so many alternatives offering better meals at lower costs, Five Guys has lost its appeal, and with it, the sense of indulgence that once justified the splurge. If Five Guys shows the danger of being too expensive, Panda Express exposes the weakness of being too ordinary. Once marketed as an easy gateway to Asian-inspired cuisine, it is now treated by many Canadians as the symbol of everything wrong with Americanized food culture. Tourist spending at US Panda Express outlets has dropped by 41%, a number that speaks to more than just shifting tastes. It reflects a loss of patience with meals that feel formulaic and uninspired. The chain's biggest flaw lies in its predictability. Dishes are described as overly sweet, vegetables limp from sitting under heat lamps, and sauces heavy enough to mask the absence of freshness. For many Canadian visitors, the experience feels less like dining and more like refueling in a shopping mall corridor. The brand's attempt to position itself as a mass-market bridge to Asian cuisine has backfired, turning into a caricature that satisfies neither authenticity nor quality. This erosion of appeal is not about portion size or pricing. It is about relevance. In an era where Canadians are surrounded by diverse, independent Asian restaurants offering fresh, locally sourced options, Panda Express feels trapped in the past. What was once a novelty during cross-border trips has become a reminder of how stale a franchise can become when it leans too heavily on convenience and too little on innovation. For Canadian travelers, the brand now represents more than just a disappointing meal. It has become a lesson in how quickly cultural positioning unravels when a company underestimates the expectations of an audience that values freshness, variety, and authenticity above all else. Panda Express, once a supposed strength in America's fast food arsenal, now stands as a warning that even mainstream familiarity cannot survive without quality to back it up. And if Panda Express highlights the cost of poor quality, Chick-fil-A reveals another vulnerability: how brand values can become liabilities overnight. For Canadians, the debate is no longer about chicken sandwiches or waffle fries. Instead, it is about the meaning attached to every dollar spent at the counter. A series of controversies over the company's political donations has left deep marks, and Canadians, long sensitive to questions of inclusivity and corporate responsibility, are responding with their wallets. Surveys show intentions to visit Chick-fil-A among Canadian travelers have fallen by 38%, a blow that cannot be explained by food alone. The implications go far beyond a single scandal. In Canada's cultural climate, where businesses are increasingly judged on social and environmental responsibility, Chick-fil-A's image as a family-friendly chain has been replaced by one of division. For many Canadians, supporting the brand feels less like buying a meal and more like endorsing a set of values they cannot align with. That shift is powerful because it touches not only consumer choice, but also identity. making the brand's recovery far more complicated than simply updating a menu or remodeling a store. What makes this decline even more striking is the contrast between its reputation inside and outside the U.S. While American debates around the chain often split along political lines, Canadian reactions have been more decisive. The margin for error is thinner and forgiveness harder to earn. In this environment, the very strength that once defined Chick-fil-A, its stable, disciplined corporate identity, has turned into a weight dragging it down. For Canadians, the brand is no longer just another fast food stop. It has become a cautionary emblem of how quickly consumer trust can fracture when a company underestimates the cultural expectations of its closest neighbor. And the lesson is unmistakable. In today's interconnected marketplace, a fast food empire can collapse not only because of what it serves, but because of the values it chooses to represent. These 7 fast food giants are not just losing Canadian diners, they are losing their global standing. Canada, once the friendliest and closest consumer market, has become a failed test case for America's cultural exports. What does it mean when even the neighbor most familiar with U.S. brands begins to reject them? The fallout reaches beyond food. When soft power wobbles through something as simple as fries, pancakes, or chicken sandwiches, the larger image of Made in USA starts to blur as well. And in that fading space, Canadian chains, European newcomers, and Asian brands are already stepping forward, ready to claim the territory America left behind. So here's the question that lingers. If even Canada is turning away, who will step in to keep these U.S. icons alive? Or are we watching the quiet decline of an empire built on fast food? Thanks for watching, and if this resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Every click fuels the truth.